Hello and welcome to the Gonzales Mitchell Show. I'm Clay Mitchell.
And I'm Patrick Gonzales. And Clay, we don't promote it a whole lot, but the subtitle of our show is called What's Going On? And it's
Right,
named, you and I decided a long time ago that we both love Marvin Gaye, not
right.
only a great American, but a great, great musician.
Yes,
And Marvin, a little bit older than us, of age at a time in the 60s when a lot of the same stuff was going on. Protests. We had that big one in Chicago back in the summer of 68. We had that big deadly one at Kent State in early 70, May of 1970. And, I
right.
think back and I think, okay, there are a lot of protests going on now. But back then, there was a relationship between what our citizens were doing vis-a-vis protesting and their own sort of self-interest. In other words, people, again, a little older than us, they had a lot to protest in the 60s because it was going to be their ass on the line that had to
They
go to
sure are.
Vietnam and fight a war that kind of didn't quite make sense. And that's
Right.
when government really kind of beginning, I would say, with the Kennedy assassination, government really started bullshitting its citizens. And as the technology for communication grew, the level of bullshit grew. Well, imagine how it's grown in the last 55 years, and we
Mm,
see what's going on. And I guess the one thing, real quick, that frustrates me
sure.
is I see these young people out there today protesting. Well, what do they protest? And I think instilled in them from their baby boomer parents was how cool it was and how unrighteous this country was in
Right.
1960s, and it was. The race relations were horrible. There was still something that needed to be fixed. And there were legitimate, angry people tethered to reality. Today, I think we've got a population of young people that have no life, no purpose in life. They're trying to relive what was inculcated in them by their parents, and they're protesting for terrorists. Give me a break. And I guess, Clay, my one last thought, it has been discussed for over 100 years, and most poignantly, probably by Martin Luther King in early 1960s. You cannot legislate morality. You can only regulate behavior. And what we've got today in Maryland, I believe, is a government that tries to regulate morality and in the process spends billions and billions of dollars in a failed, hopeless attempt. What say you?
My friend, I'm waving the white flag. There's nothing else that can be done this session. The damage is done. Excuse me. I've spoken out against it. Uh, the shore delegation's spoken out against what's been going on in the legislature. We don't have the votes. And I'll be honest with you, maybe a year from now, I'm going to reevaluate the situation here in Maryland. Hopefully, with all of this new urban spending, there will be a burst of enlightenment in the schools, the public school system, and students will make this miraculous march toward progress in education. But I'm not holding my breath because of the formulaic spending that's going on in Annapolis. They're going to be back next year, the mandatory spending increases, and they're going to be looking at the taxpayers of this state. And I think it's a charade to shift costs that used to totally belong in Annapolis back to the counties, forcing the counties that can't print money like Washington and that don't have the resources available to them that Maryland does. Queen Anne's County, Kent County, Caroline County, Talbot County, the area that I'm from, the counties are screwed, man. Uh, Budgets are going to be shattered, and I shudder to think what my property taxes are going to be in the next in the next 6 months. It's going to be awful. Now, when you're talking about morality and common sense, it, it's a moral thing to do to make sure that children get a good education. I don't think money's the answer to this. Unless there is some sort of discipline put back into the system where the
End of conversation. End of conversation. Money is not the answer. Nothing more needs to be said.
yeah, the cost per pupil, we should be in good shape, and apparently we're not. Um, I've noticed, I guess, the past couple of weeks, just watching Annapolis. This is just observation. It's not, my political opinion or anything. But
Right.
there appears to be, when you talk about the center of gravity of power, to me, I think Speaker Jones is the center of power in Annapolis. For instance, and I'll tell you why I think that. Early on the session, Governor Moore wanted to make some adjustments to Kerwin, maybe delay some things, stretch it out. As soon as it was proposed, the House said, nope, and it went forward. And she has the votes. The governor doesn't have the votes. So, kudos to the speaker for having accrued that kind of power. But I've noticed maybe a little bit of cracks in the foundation during the votes for the budget and the budget reconciliation bill. Sherry Sample Hughes, delegate from the Eastern Shore, who's a Democrat, broke ranks with the leadership of the party and said, this doesn't reflect where I'm from. Where I'm from on the Eastern Shore, this doesn't reflect our values. So she voted a no. Good for her. That's the first time I've seen anyone stand up to leadership. The second thing, Patrick, all of these taxes, the tech tax or the data tax, whatever they call it, suddenly appears. And one of the Democrats, Delegate Brian Crosby, warned leadership, if this happens, companies like me that deal with federal contracts, we got to leave the state. And allegedly, I've read that he was in his moving truck taking his business. Mr. Crosby's still staying in Maryland, but taking his business over the state line. He heard on the radio that the bill had passed, the tax was in. That's a bad signal when someone has a business in Maryland, you're a leader in Maryland, you tell people it's not going to work, and here's the effects of it. That was a watershed moment in Annapolis the past couple of weeks. And I go ahead.
No, I was just saying we're not talking about just anybody. We're talking about a state delegate
Yes,
who is reacting to his own party's policies. And you talked about Adrienne Jones, and I don't know her personally, but
mhm,
she is the accidental speaker. Remember, our
right.
good friend Michael Aaron Bush dies. There is a vacancy. Derek Davis and Maggie McIntosh enter the octagon to see who will emerge. Two enter, one will emerge. Well, two entered and nobody emerged. So all of a sudden, Adrienne Jones, on that way to the forum, became speaker. And I don't follow the ins and outs so much, but I have heard that, yeah, she's exercising control in a way over the executive branch. But a lot of that, Clay, has to do with fortitude within the executive branch. You gotta sometimes to lead on this earth, you gotta stop smiling and you gotta start thinking and acting and doing things that perhaps internally within our soul is tough, painful, hurtful. But you got to do it. It's about what 6 million Maryland. I don't know what the population of Maryland is, and
Thereabouts,
so
yeah.
we got it. We just got a dynamic. And again, it goes back. Money has been spent for years and mandated to be spent. So therefore, you are creating a expenditure that has to be taken care of without really factoring in, okay, what are the resources? What is the income that's going to make that happen? And here we are, and we're
That's
going to
right.
find in 8 days what that final plan is. And I'll tell you what, more so than what the final plan is, because I don't think you or I or a lot of people are going to like it. I want to watch how the leadership, the executive leadership, the Senate leadership, the House leadership tries to sell that pile of this is a family show.
Right. You know, that's why I raised the white flag earlier, a surrender thing. You know what? Let them do it. It's on them. The effects are going to be real when counties start to meet about their next budget. Taxes are going up. Whether it's a Republican, like in Queen Anne's County, it's an all Republican commission. They see the writing on the wall. Mandated spending comes down to them too. It rolls downhill, and I don't know if there's the courage, for lack of a better word, for the counties, especially ones here on the shore, to say, "I don't care what Annapolis says. We're not doing this. We got a county to run. Our schools are, for the most part, very good schools, for public schools, and we're not doing this. We got other things to spend and priorities to spend this money on." But I know that's a pipe dream, and that's why I kind of wave the white flag.
Yeah.
Um, did you hear the latest? They're looking at having a mattress fee or a mattress tax.
I heard,
Have you
I
heard?
heard, I thought I had dreamed it last night, but I must have actually heard it. Now, what is
Yeah.
the mattress tax? Because I'll sleep. Well, I sleep on the floor anyway because I'm homeless and I live in a tent. But what is? I was thinking about going out and getting a used mattress. I don't think I am now. What is this mattress tax?
This is supposed to ensure the proper disposal of mattresses. I never knew we had a mattress disposal problem. I've never heard
I
anybody
didn't. Hear-
talk about it.
I didn't
Anybody.
hear. Is it an environmental Is it part of the global climate crisis?
It,
Mattresses?
Patrick, it appears so. Now, I mean, it's one thing to think about, you buy a mattress, what, every 15 years or something like that. But think
I
about
buy not
this.
that often, right?
Hotels and motels here in this state, they probably buy them by the dozens
Oh
over the
yeah.
course of time and years. Do you think, especially the ones here on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, do you think they're going to buy the mattresses at a mattress store in Maryland? Or are they going to drive 15 miles, take their truck over there to Delaware and get them there? At Johnny Janasik's World of Furniture, they got tons of them. I don't know what the
With it,
tax is. I haven't read that they've come up with a figure, but my God, that's enough. It's just enough.
Clay, Clay, the
Yes,
hotels
sir.
I stay at, it looks like they haven't changed the mattress in 30 years. I got to get a new, higher level of hotel to stay at.
Yeah, you need to use that AARP discount, my friend. You could
Yeah,
save yourself some
they,
money. Get yourself a good room.
I
Your
certainly
poor wife,
qualify.
your poor wife deserves better, Patrick.
Yes, she does.
The other thing that I got to thinking about as the session winds down, I mean, we talked about the center of gravity of the Democratic Party. Uh, of course, it's Bill Ferguson, Adrian Jones, and Governor Wes Moore. I think Adrian Jones is the one that is the tail wagging the dog there. But the Republican Party, I don't know who's the mouthpiece or the symbol of it. I could think of my senator Steve Hershey, the minority leader in the Senate. There's
Right,
former Governor Larry Hogan,
right,
and the only other Republican of any size or power is Andy Harris, our congressman here on the shore.
right.
But are
And,
any one of them? Uh, is the party coalescing around any one of them? I don't see it, and they
and,
better
I,
get on the stick.
and I'm not, into the inside baseball of politics so much. I mean, all those people you mentioned are friends of mine, I would like to think.
Right.
And sometimes it is, you've got different, it's like any group. You're going to have different elements that drive the people into the group, different motivations, but fundamentally there's got to be sort of an overarching commonality. And I think there is. within the Republican Party. And it's just a matter of having the right. Sometimes it just takes the right individual to come. And because I think in some ways, Donald Trump was that right individual at the national level 8 years ago to kind of recognize all the different elements and factions of the party. So I don't know who it is necessarily, but I have faith that that's going to happen. But as we've seen recently on the Democratic side, there's a little bit of infighting going on there, and I haven't followed it too closely. Perhaps you can tell me a little bit about what's happening on that issue.
Well, I just brought up a couple of examples of some cracks that I see with Delegate Crosby and Delegate Sample Hughes. I think it's too early to tell whether those are cracking the foundation of the Democratic Party. As of
Right?
now, I don't think so. In the
Yeah. No.
Republican Party, they started this new, well, I think it's the Freedom Caucus. They're speaking very
Right.
loudly. There's maybe not even a dozen members of it. They're speaking very loudly, and in my view, have a lot of good message. But you have to remember to win statewide office, it's Democrats that elect the governor. It's Democrats that elect the senators. It's not
You
the
gotta
Republicans.
get you gotta get in a statewide race. I don't care how the math works. You gotta get 30% of Dems. So,
That's right.
and
And Larry Hogan did a masterful job of sort of rebranding the Republican Party, the Change Maryland Party that I've written before,
right.
where I think that was really a true third party because it attracted Republicans and everybody in the middle. I don't see that right now happening. And
Well, when Larry Hogan did that in 2014, you still at the national level had a flaccid, and I do mean limp dick Republican Party, is exemplified by Mitt Romney, Mittens Romney being the nominee in 2012. So there was an environment where Hogan could come in and do that. That doesn't exist so much anymore. Not only has the national party flipped a lot, but it still can be done. And it still has to be driven by a sense of Marylanders being dissatisfied. And the number one, a couple of numbers are popping in my head from the last poll I did. Number
right,
one, 50% of Marylanders think the state's moving in the wrong direction. 76% of Marylanders say their electric bill has gone up in the last year. 57% say a great deal. That's hitting people where they live in the pocketbook. So,
my friend, I think that let him do it. Let it happen. We don't have enough votes. There's not enough senators there to block any legislation in the Maryland Senate. Uh, our side has done all they can do, and all of the credit I want to go to the leaders that have passed these bills and these taxes. I don't want the Republicans to have any credit for that, if you know what I mean, because we had
yeah,
no choice in the matter. Um, so, like I said, a year from now, if they come back to the well, which I think they're going to have to do, and siphon out more money out of your pocket, I got to really think if this is a place I want to be. And I mean that dead
yeah, brother,
serious.
brother, your sort of state of despair, state of resignation, kind of drives me back to late '60s, early '70s when Marvin was singing Mother, 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 there's far too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying.
Now, at first, when you said
What's
Marvin, I thought you
going
meant Marvin Mandel, and I don't think
Marvin
Marvin
Mandela.
Mandel.
Now that
I
was a
don't think he
great
sang.
American.
I don't think he sang, and it's soul music, man.
Oh
Well,
man,
well, well,
Marvin.
well,
What a great fella. What a great
yeah.
fella.
Now, Patrick, I think, what is it, a week tomorrow, the session ends. I think,
Sine
what is
die.
Sunny Die,
Arrivederci. Yeah.
and we got to get back together and talk about what actually happened, what actually passed, and if there's anything left to be done, say vis-a-vis a special session. I think that's a possibility, my friend.
Oh, I don't think it's a possibility. I think it is a certainty. Um, and I predict today is, let's just say, April 1st. I'm not very good at math, but within 6 months, I predict there will be a special session in the state of Maryland.
It, to 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 in defense of, I want to say, those in power, there's some things they can't control, which are the mass layoffs out of Washington. But that's a subject for another show, which we should have
Exactly.
right after session.
I agree
Well,
completely.
Patrick, I'm looking at the clock. I think it's time to say goodbye, Patrick.
What's going on? What's going on? Goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick. See you soon.